In today's meta, Kwang is very strong. He can go in the jungle, in the offlane, with great effect. Usually he's kind of built with a good amount of damage in the early game for good burst potential to get some advantages and snowball in the late mid game into the late game. He then becomes a very strong bruiser, but still with some damage. This deck here today is meant to do exactly that. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a hero deck and guide. I am Sylphin. This is for Kwang, called the Hwarang. Simply the Korean's version of a samurai. So this is kind of a bruiser, tanky sort of deck for Kwang. Centurion, because we're going for tank. In the early game, you start off with the Scythe into the Sage's Ward to the Empyrean Mask, Whirling Wand, and Elder Mage Amulet. Somewhere in there, you get Blood-Soaked Armor at the 10-minute mark, without, obviously, those guard upgrades. Nice amount of attack speed that we'll talk about. Empyrean Mask, just wonderful. In the mid-game, you get Honor the Pure or Purity Sensor, and the greater health upgrades on your upgraded Guardian's Ward here when needed, followed by any Divine Guards on the Blood-Soaked Armor, if there's 2 carries, stuff like that, or you can just get those anyways. The Thick Blood could be equipped early in the mid-game if needed. If the phase duo is really strong, or there's Rampage, Chimera thrown in there as well, can be gotten sooner. In the end game, when you're fully transitioned into all of this nonsense, it's pretty sweet. Make sure to have enough power, though, when you are transitioning into Trader's Touch, Thick Blood, and a Thermal Bond or Tune Barrier, depending on the enemy team comp. In general, though, remember to get those health upgrades first before getting armor, because the math, because of that effective HP relationship you want between the enemy's damage output. Now, the optional items here, you have a health potion and 2 healer tokens for the offlane, and a Tune Barrier instead of the Thermal Bond if they don't have many stuns, roots, and knockups. Purity Sensor is also an option instead of Honor the Pure if you have a support that can get Honor the Pure, just so you can provide that purity for the phase, for an Aurora, stuff like that. You also have an option of a Stab Link or some pretty crazy playmaking in the mid to late game. Now, in this guide today, we are taking a look at Kwang in the offlane. It just happened to be the good game here that I had with him, and a good showcase of him. Now, I start with the Light of the Heavens, his right-click ability, and you can't start with that in the jungle as well. Why? Simply because it does good AoE damage. What happens is beams of light strike Kwang's sword. Not him, but his sword, dealing AoE ability damage around it and giving Kwang basic armor and ability armor. The damage is 75 all the way up to 240 with a power scaling of 0.5. A little bit of damage goes a long way on Kwang. Mana cost, don't really have to worry about it. The cooldown, it's fairly long in the early game, so you gotta really use it wisely here, but in the late game, only 10 seconds. Ability armor is 40 to all the way up to 100, and same with basic armor. It's significant. Absolutely significant. If you use it appropriately, and you'll see later on as well, it can do quite a bit. The duration is 2.5 seconds. You can get away with you can get away, you know, with that armor for quite some time. Very powerful ability. You can use it to animation cancel. So your basic attack, boom, and then right when that damage is applied, you can hit your Light of the Heavens and animation cancel for a nice quick burst of damage. It's highly effective. That is a big part of Kwang's burst, and that is something that you kind of rely on here when you play Kwang. Very effective. Now here, I'm going to come in, because there's a siege minion here, I'm going to come in, try to get at least the range minion out of the way, and use my shield, my Light of the Heavens to give me that armor. And as you can see, dodging some of the basic attacks, I was able to kind of quell this lane a little bit. He is great in the off lane. Against a Revenant, I'd rather have a Feng Mao, but you can use that Light of the Heavens for some armor for his Obliterate and to easily clear these waves. The next ability that is very powerful is called Gift of the Heavens. It's his E ability. There's a passive component. Well, it's just a passive component. Kwang's sword bursts with light, creating an aura around it that grants lifesteal and spell steal. People forget about this to both Kwang and allies around him. So here, my Kwang comes very nicely. We focus the phase just like we should, and kaboom. That burst, basic attack into Light of the Heavens. That animation cancels it into another basic attack. Good amount of damage, pretty much the entire game. Now again, that Gift of the Heavens, the lifesteal for Kwang is 8% to 15%, that's a significant amount. You can definitely get good sustain on Kwang, and the lifesteal for allies is 5 to 10%. The range is 2,000, so really, it's a pretty far distance. In any team fight, really, your friendly team is going to be able to not only heal from their basic attacks, but also their spells, all of their abilities as well will be very, very effective in giving them some sustain. Works great with the Gideon, the whole wombo combo AoE stuff. Works really well. More Gesh because of all of her damage over time. It's just fantastic. People really forget about that, and I think that's what. There's always a team always has an edge when they're fighting with a friendly Kwang. Always remember to try to get these white camps here on the side of your off lane here. Great amount of CXP and hero experience as well. I usually start off getting one of these side camps in the off lane just because of that CXP. You can see I was able to go back and get a healer token here, which otherwise it just helps, and I really like getting that healer token a little bit earlier than usual. The next ability that we get here in the off lane, just because we want that lifesteal and that armor from our Light of the Heavens, is called Judgment of the Heavens, his Q ability. Kwang throws his sword to the heavens. When it lands, it deals ability damage and tethers enemies to it. The sword remains planted in the ground forever, until you re-trigger or the next basic attack. So you can either press Q or just basic attack, and then he will the sword comes flying back to him. The ability damage, not much, 60 to 120.25 power scaling. It does some damage, it adds up with the rest of his kit, not too much. The mana cost, don't really have to think about it, 70 to 85. The tether duration, though, goes up quite a bit when you increase it. 1.75 seconds all the way up to 3.25 second tether. Very, very, very strong. The cooldown is 14 seconds. This ability is very important to upgrade along with your Light of the Heavens, your right click, because you want to tether enemies in place for as long as possible to really help your allies escape or catch up to them if they're trying to kill them. Very important ability to upgrade. When we are talking about upgrades, upgrading your Light of the Heavens increases that damage a ton. It really increases the damage a ton. It increases the armor you get by 50%, then 33%, then 25%. It's really, really strong when you upgrade your right click. That burst damage is really great for not only clearing these waves here in the offlane, but also especially clearing those jungle camps. Very strong to upgrade your Light of the Heavens, followed by your Judgment of the Heavens, just to make sure you can tether people in place a little bit more. Now, his ultimate here, that we haven't seen yet, is pretty awesome. It's called Fury of the Heavens. Kwang spins his blade around him in an AoE, damaging and slowing enemies. If his sword has been thrown out and is out in the world, he will teleport to it before attacking. So obviously this has tremendous potential to traverse the map. On Legacy, you saw this much more. I don't think I've really seen this in Monolith. But in Legacy, you used to throw down your sword if you were in lane, and then you would recall, and then you just ult right back, and you could, boom, traverse the map instantly, and, get back into lane super quick. Monolith, I haven't seen that, really, so Just know that that is an option. It also, you can use it to escape. You can plant it down on some high terrain or something and try to juke the enemy around, and then ult back to your sword. Just know that it's pretty obvious when a Kwang has thrown out his sword and he's trying to do some shenanigans. It's pretty obvious, so you got to be sneaky when you're trying to use that tactic. Now, Fury of the Heavens, the ability damage is pretty good. 220 to 420 with power scaling at 0.8. A lot of power, or some power, goes a long way on his ultimate. The mana cost 90 to 130. You gotta pay attention to how much mana you have, so you can do your whole burst thing. Movement speed slow for that 2 seconds after your ultimate is 400. Very powerful, and the cooldown is pretty short, 85 to 65 seconds from level 1 to 3. Very powerful. His ult is a big part of his burst. Especially for this phase, I'm going to be constantly thinking about trying to Judgment of the Heavens, root her in place into my Light of the Heavens, into my ultimate, so that I can do a ton of damage here. You can see I root this Revenant in place with my Judgment of the Heavens going into my Light of the Heavens to get some good damage, and then usually you have enough time to use your ultimate, and then boom, you can just do a crazy amount of damage with Kwang pretty quickly. Shadow Scroll Kwang, it's not very meta anymore to deal a crap ton of damage with all of his abilities there. Not really a thing anymore because he has such a good bruiser frontline potential. Now, you can see here, I'm showing you this whole mid game, or this early game, because it's very important to see kind of what you do, getting those camps, how you just function in the offlane. The early game is very important to see. So you can see 2 healer tokens into our ward. You need that ward. And then I get the Blood Soaked because it's the 11 minutes mark, and we can get Raptors. So what Blood Soak does is, on every basic attack that you take, the enemy grants a bleed stack. This bleed stack takes a percentage of their health off over 4 seconds, I believe, something like that. So, on targets with a lot of health, like the Raptors, especially Orb Prime, that damage tick is crazy. An Orb Prime at the end game in this game, I saw it ticking for 235 damage a tick. That's crazy. Really helps with Raptors, as you can see there. And you can see me use my Light of the Heavens that we've upgraded thrice here to save my butt against that Revenant's Obliterate. I escaped with 20 health that I'm sure would have killed me if I hadn't gotten that armor. The next card that we get here is Empyrean Mask. I'm going to show you this while I'm clearing these lanes because it's actually really useful. Make sure that you activate it. You have to press the key. It's an active card. You have to press the key in order to activate it, and then you can switch between damage, 4 CP of power, 4 CP of armor, and 4 CP of mana regen. The mana regen's actually the one I almost like the most, to be honest with you. I can clear camps much faster and just regenerate that mana. I can do anything and just have mana, which is really important for Kwang because all of his abilities are just really powerful. But what you can also do is easily switch it to power, do your tether into your sword of your Judgment of the Heavens into your Light of the Heavens into your Fury of the Heavens, and then you can just, all of that damage that you just did had 4 CP of the Empyrean Mask of power on it. Then you just click it once into armor, and boom, all of a sudden you are the front line that your team needs you to be with some extra armor. Perfect. It's just so fantastic. It's a great card. Absolutely great card for pretty much any order hero. And then, after that, you just switch it to mana regen to regenerate all of that mana you just used. Wonderful card on Kwang. Just fantastic. Again, Blood Soaked, very good on those Raptors. Now, while I like the idea of Kwang in today's meta, is to focus the snot out of the phase. I was like, phase, you're going down. I root her in place. Light of the Heavens, I don't have my ultimate. It's just coming off cooldown, unfortunately. So, we didn't need it anyway. So just obliterate that snot. We're going to get thick, obliterate that snot. Wow. Destroy that phase. And then just continue. I'm like, nope. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit of an idiot here and overextended way too much. Now, the next two cards we get, the Whirling Wand and the Elder Mage Amulet. The Whirling Wand, that 3 CP of attack speed goes a long way on all fighters. A long way. It really increases his damage output, and of course that power also synergizes very well with Kwang and his abilities. The Elder Mage Amulet we want because of that health. We simply need that health as we're transitioning into more of a frontline role in the mid and late game. Fantastic. You can see there that I try to get that phase. She did a good blind, and I didn't really feel like using my ultimate when I was blinded, but I secured the kill there on that Morigesh, and that's why Kwang is just so damn good. Now here in this engagement, you will see me really focus down this phase. I got Thick Blood a bit early, kind of. It is a 30-minute mark, but I was like, it's time to get that Thick Blood because I need to eliminate that phase. Take her out really, really quickly, and with the help from some new cards. Trader's Touch. Why Trader's Touch? Because it is 110% absolutely without a doubt worth it on fighters. Fighters that can use it. Grux, Kwang, absolutely use it because of their poor power scaling on their basic attack and how they function with attack speed and how they really like it. Trader's Touch, 110% worth it, especially against any target, even at 30%, 25% maximum health. So if they're hurting a lot, it still pays for itself. A fantastic, ridiculous card, Trader's Touch, that I think people maybe are undervaluing a little bit in today's meta. So the Thick Blood, the Trader's Touch, and our upgraded Guardian's Ward with a good amount of health. You can see we're sitting at 2100 health. Really going to help be that tanky frontline and still be very efficient in doing good damage. Now, while this deck, it can get very, very tanky, very much frontline brawler, you gotta be careful. You can see here that we have gone into our Tuned Barrier instead of a Thermobond. There isn't very many roots and stuns on the enemy team. I walk in the middle of the enemy team under tower, ult, yeah, it does some damage and spreads Thick Blood to the entire team, but I kind of take way too much damage and die, so really not a smart idea. You gotta play safe. See, the Orb Prime is a siege tool, a long-term siege tool, so don't do stuff like that. That leads to my Morigesh and Kallari overextending to try to take out some enemies. Don't do that. Now this is a pretty good inhibitor siege with Orb Prime. I want you guys to watch it. This also means that we can talk about the next cards, and we finish off our build here, the Tomb Barrier for that greater barrier, but there's a lot of health on it too, which will help out our overall tankiness and EHP. Now, we have 3,200 health, so we are great frontline here, and that still deals good damage. Don't forget that too. The Thick Blood, the reduced healing from Thick Blood, you can consider that as health, as damage, because you're reducing the health that they'll gain anyways. It's very effective. You have to consider Thick Blood as damage dealing. Now we have Purity Sensor here because we have a Muriel. She has on the Pure, and I can use that against the enemy phase, and of course Aurora if they had one. But the enemy phase, it's fairly obvious when they're going to use it. And here in the late game, not getting blinded for 3.5 seconds or whatever it is, 3 seconds, it's a long time, is life and death. Either you can see and attack the carry that's going to kill you during that time, or you can try plays. It's really powerful. Again, trying to focus the Fae. I'm like, I know we have Orb Prime, but I'm like, I want to take her out because she's just so damn powerful. As you can see, doing a good amount of damage there, and almost taking her out if the rest of my team had followed up. Very effective. We're going into the guard here in our blood-soaked armor. I'm feeling like I have enough long-term sustain from basic attacks, so that's why I went into that last. Nice long-term core siege. this was one of the best games of Paragon I have ever played. You can see I'm only 1 kill, 3 deaths, but 9 assists. So I've really been there more so than our Muriel and Kalari here, who have global presences. So really great. Kwang is super strong, and here we final deck here with a whole bunch of guard for that long-term sustain, that greater barrier here. Again, the enemy team needs a ton, absolutely a ton of ability damage in order to warrant more than 30. I got 36 here just to eliminate that enemy pen that they're gonna have. They need a lot. They need a heavy caster comp in order for the math to go in ability armor's favor. So that is why we're only going for that tomb barrier. Right, here is the push to the win. It's going to be a little bit laggy because all of this flames here. That seems to be a replay bug, but just fantastic. I go after that phase again, but then I see this, and I almost teleport into the base, but I was super calculated with that. I was like, ugh, gotta put that down right at the steps. And I do get that Kwang to at least secure some sort of numbers advantage. I think we would have won anyways, but there you go. Great, absolutely fantastic game here on Kwang. Absolute treat here to play as Kwang. Guys, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. What do you guys think of Kwang? What do you guys think of this deck? It was an absolute treat to play him. It's been an absolute... He's just awesome. So I really like it. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this deck. Anything that I forgot, any good tips that you guys have, please let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this deck and Kwang. Please like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, and of course, guys, subscribe. If you guys like this content, especially if you found it useful, please subscribe so I can do it for you in the future. If you would like to support me and what I do on a regular basis, please consider going over to my Patreon account where you can make a monthly pledge to support what I do and reap some pretty good rewards. Till next time, like always, guys, stay optimistic and positive.